Okay, welcome everybody. Really quick question to get an idea what kind of audience I got. Developers in the room? Hands up. Not very many. SREs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, quite a few. Ooh, it's about 50-50. Architects? If you're a developer, you're an architect by default, right? Managers? Lost? I always wonder what they do in things like this. Anybody here using Fluent? Professionally or as a hobby? Fluent D? Know of it? OTel? Using or know of it? There's a difference. There's a big difference. All right. So what you're going to see today, what we're going to talk about today, is all backed by a workshop. There's no need to take pictures of the slides. They're online right now. If you go to Schabell.org, you can get them yourself. There will be QR codes scattered through towards the end for jumping straight to the workshop if you want to go bookmark that. All the stuff you see today that we hopefully get to hands-on live, demoing and stuff is going to be stuff you build and you can do online at your own self-paced tempo. So everything you see today, you should be able to repeat at home. First thing we're going to look at here is what's the difference. So understanding what FluentBit and OTel or collectors are doing is out there at the front end collecting your telemetry data, right? And a lot of the conversations you might see, or when you start having discussions internally about this, might be we have to pick one or the other. I'm here to tell you that that's not really the case. You will often in a true enterprise see a mixture of these things or use cases that can easily apply to one or the other in favor of the telemetry type that you're collecting. They all have strengths and weaknesses. I'm not going to go into every single one of them, but they also work together seamlessly, so there's absolutely nothing holding you back from using either one, right? And you should see that today. Just want to make that really clear. If we look at FluentBit, this is a derivative basically over time from Fluent D. Fluent D was developed in a time when we were doing VMs and APM, and observability really wasn't a word. It was monitoring, monolithic kind of stuff. Not very performant if you take this stuff straight into the cloud and into the container environments, right? Did not perform well. Too much resource, too intensive, too big. So FluentBit was developed as a sub-project of FluentD. So it automatically inherited the graduated status. Was adopted really quickly in the organizations. It's very lightweight, very performant, scales massively and easily across an organization, especially on the edge, especially in container environments. Limited resources, right? Am I walking too far? I'm here for the fans, not for the recording. Sorry out there in the recording. So this thing scales and it's really good at high throughput, really performant. So keep that in mind. It's really flexible as far as that goes. Traces first, written and go. OTel we've seen, and you see no matter where you go, a ton of talks about this, right? This talk focuses on the collector only, and also on the OpenTelemetry protocol. One of the biggest strengths here is they spend a lot of time trying to standardize the communication protocol. Doesn't do us any good if we're all doing our own version of YAML, right? So having the OTLP, the OpenTelemetry transmission protocol is super important, right? The best part is they both can speak to each other fluently. See how I did that, fluently? FluentBit has a forwarding protocol. It's called the FluentBit forward output plugin. OTel can take that directly, and since about 6 months now, they have the ability to put everything that comes out of FluentBit into an OTel envelope. So you can ingest it natively as OTLP. So basically you can go back and forth. It really doesn't matter at all. Right? This is really handy when you come into an organization, you see that they have one or the other. There's no need to replace one or the other. There's no need to get in the way of one another. You might have some kind of legacy monolithic stuff somewhere. You can put it into FluentBit, which is known for anything in, anything out. So the input plugins, there's massive amounts of these things. You can collect almost anything, and you can output almost anywhere to any backend, right? Super important to understand that. Some of the use cases, we've mentioned it a little bit here. So collecting at the edge, resource constrained. You want to have something really lightweight, really easy to use. And you're going to see here, I'm going to walk you through exactly the 5 phases involved with using FluentBit. It's very easy to digest both in your mind and to physically use. You're going to kick yourself that you did not think to write this yourself. That's basically what the feeling is when you start using it for the first time. The OTel collector is a centralized aggregation point. Does a lot of advanced processing inside there also. So you're hearing basically the same thing for both of these. It's just a different focus, a different collective way of doing stuff. And a lot of people are buying into the OpenTelemetry ecosystem inside of organizations, so then you'll run into this there. But they can run together, huh? You can do them either one, it doesn't really matter. You're gonna see that shortly. So, telemetry pipeline, what's this thing look like? That's it. 5 steps, super easy. Man, I should have wrote this. I wouldn't be here standing here talking to you guys if I did. Eduardo is the head of the Fluent bit. He's one of the original developers of this thing. It's beautiful. So the idea behind this initially was logs, right? We came out of Fluent D with logs. Fluent D's idea was, okay, anybody here ever been a Java developer? So I don't know about you, but back in the day when I was a Java developer at a financial institution, we used to spend time at the coffee machines because back then the machines were slow enough that it took a while to compile your Java. And we'd be talking about what are we going to put in our exceptions? What English language thing were we going to say so that when you get a dump of this big stack trace that the guy sitting there or the lady sitting there at the op side of the house would be able to understand what the hell was going on. We broke our heads all the time about this stuff, and it made no friggin' difference because the third floor would call and make me go down there and look at the stack trace and explain to them what was going on anyway, right? Everybody's gone through that. The idea here with Fluent D and Fluent Bit, it's parsing is the first thing that happens. Turns it into machine-readable language, turns it into YAML, turns it into JSON, turns it into key value pairs so that you can then use all kinds of tools to parse this stuff, right? First thing that happens. Second thing is filtering. Now, what do you want to do if you have sensitive data? You want to remove it. What if you have data you don't even care about? Remove it. Maybe you want to aggregate things. Maybe you want to enrich the data. You do all that in the filter phase. Then you have a buffering phase. Buffering is, by default, in memory. Everything that's read through this is broken up into chunks and is just run through a memory buffer. Problem is, what happens when you run out of memory? You start losing data, right? So you have the ability to turn on file system memory and stuff like that to buffer into the file system and make a big queue and then process it at your own time. There's also a lab inside, 2 labs actually, inside the workshop that'll take you through exactly that on your own machine, and you can see how it breaks and how you can fix it and some of the things you can tweak. And then you have routing. So based on these key value pairs, you can make decisions of where you want your information to go. Some of it might go to an Elastic backend. Some of it might go to a Prometheus backend. Some of them might go to some kind of proprietary backend. Some of them might go to storage in the cloud. It doesn't matter. You can make choices and filter based on the routing there. And then it goes to an output plugin. These output plugins is a whole list of stuff you can find online in the documentation that covers these backends. Pretty straightforward. I forgot to click while I was telling you about this. So basically, you just walk through all this stuff, and boom, you're to the output. Now, it's all fun and games, so let's look at it, right? So, this work? Hello, hello, hello. There we go. All right, so the idea here, if you guys can hear me, is that we're going to go look at this under the hood. Hello. There we go. Better? All right. So, what you're looking at here is, and we're going to need both of these, so I'm going to come over here. Ooh. Hello. I'm going to switch back and forth and make your life hard. So if you look at the top there, you see a service section, you see a pipeline, and you see outputs. Within the pipeline is where everything's happening. I've commented out a bunch of stuff, but what we have an input that's generating a fake log line. I have other demos where you generate them out of Kubernetes and all that kind of stuff, but that's too much confusion right now. It's not about what's coming through the log message. It's about getting something standard that we can digest. We see you have a service and a back end. We have a user ID with some kind of secret ID inside there. Imagine your social security number or something like that. And you have a log entry. And in the output, very straightforward, it's going to standard out to the console. It's going to put everything in the console. And the first thing we're going to see here is that it just dumps it out as the log line. I'm always too tall for these things. So here we're starting out Fluent bit, and number 2, you're going to see a premiere here right now. You notice the t-shirt I'm wearing right now says version 3, right? Version 3. What you're about to see is going to be actually announced next Monday. So you're looking at a candidate release of version 4. So this is a premiere. You're the first people on the planet to see this. They love their ASCII code, right? There you see the log lines coming out. Nothing special, nothing exciting, right? It's just generating and processing them as it goes. And you see here that it's checking it every second. So that's why you see about every second we're getting a new log line, right? Now, you notice here at the bottom, right here, and what we're going to do is we're going to just give it a kick, and I'm not going to restart it every time. Right here. Which one? 4, 4, 2, 4, 6. You see you got a kickstart in place, and now look what it's doing. It's turning it into JSON. See the difference? This is your parsed output. Remember the parse phase? All right, next thing we're going to do is go over here, and we don't like to have secret information in there, right? So let's uncomment this, and what we're saying right here is let's modify our log lines that are coming in. We're looking for every single one of them for the keyword user ID, and we're going to remove it, right? Save this. Go back over here and give it a kick. No more user ID. Right? Wait a second. I think I might have, yeah, hold on. Sorry guys, I see shocked faces and I'm like, wait a minute. All right, let's go back here and reset that. Just seeing if you're awake. All right. Now we got to check the, where are we at here? We got to check the ID. It's a different ID. Back here. Which one we got? 4351. Whoop. Now we're talking. Now you believe me? Didn't believe me, did you? You're just full of crap. But you still see we got the secret user ID in there. That's not good. So let's go back there and start modifying what we're doing. And I mean, let's be honest. This is so easy, right? Oh, wait a minute here. I promised you we would do that first. JSON. Whoops, this way. Here, sig up. A lot of moving parts. There we go. Does that look better? Now we got JSON. See, now you're nodding your heads. Now you believe me. All right. Up here, let's remove the ID. Comes with sounds. Oops, too far. Let's go here, kick it again. There we go. No more secret IDs are being processed through the back end. Now think about this. Where's this running? This is running out very close to the end. It's out collecting from your application. It's before you're going through your back end, through your cloud, and all this other stuff. So you're out on the edge, already cutting data out of the pipeline that costs a lot of money. Right? You could send this all to your back end and then edit it, but that costs you money in the cloud. Think about that. Yeah? All right, what's the other one here? Now we're going to do something a little bit more interesting. Let's start adding something. We're going to enrich our data. So the problem here was, or problem is a big word, but we see that we have a back end. Can you read this? Is it big enough? Good. Just a generic back end, right? Now let's make it something a little bit more interesting. Because back end really doesn't tell us anything when we're an SRE carrying the beeper. Ask the SRE sitting next to you. He doesn't like that, or she doesn't like that. Now we see that our back end is from regex, and we're very happy with this code, right? It's very simple, easy to understand, right? Everybody got that? Also, one thing I should mention, see the top says hot reload on. That needs to be turned on, otherwise we can't do sig hubs and kick it like that. All right? Otherwise it'll ignore you when you do that. So it's something you can turn off so people can't do that. All right. Now we go, let me stop it before it overloads my machine. If we let it run long enough, it will fill up my memory. Here we go. All right, what's next? That's all fun and games. That's the basics of, what a parser does, what a filter does, what the outputs look like, and that kind of stuff. We sent everything to standard in. We didn't send it all over the place. This case here, now you're looking at the architecture. We have a host of applications, whatever it is. We have our pipelines collecting. What we're going to do is we're going to create metrics out of this. We're going to make a metrics endpoint. Anybody here work with Prometheus? For those that don't know, Prometheus is famous for going out and getting its metrics data. So what you do is you create an endpoint where you post your metrics data, and it goes out there and it scrapes it. So you see here that it's going to push to the edge of the host. It's just going to locally put an endpoint out there, and I got to configure a backend, Prometheus, and turn it on and tell it to go get it, right? So what's that look like? So we will be doing this one. And if we take a close look here, I'm going to turn it on. You're going to see that it's going to be generating just a log line. Go over here. Run that. So it's just doing a very simple message. I think we already have the JSON on, yes. So I'm a big fan of just keeping it a JSON anyway. That's pretty much how you're going to process it. Very simple message. We got success lines going, right? So the next thing we want to do now is we want to turn on an endpoint where we're going to host our metrics. So this is going to be a local host, and it's going to be generating these metrics at the Fluent bit side. And then we're going to go back over here, figure out what the ID is so we can kick the right process. 619 it looks like. And if you watch what happens here, this is set to do it every 5 seconds. There it's collecting the metrics and putting them on the endpoint on the Fluent bit side of the house, over by your application where we saw that little endpoint, right? There's nothing collecting it, nothing scraping it. It's just now every 5 seconds, boom, kicks another bunch of metrics out, right? So what we want to do now is we want to go over here and sorry. Turn on the actual stuff so that it can be scraped. And then we're going to add a couple of labels to it. So when we go to our Prometheus, we're going to be able to see this. So let's kick this. So right now, you're not going to see anything different on this end. You're going to still see it every 5 seconds kick out the metrics. You don't see those labels and stuff. Those are inside of one of these metrics. There are labels being added. And then we will go over here. And this is the configuration that I've set up for Prometheus for those that know it. Basically, all we're doing is saying Fluent bit's out there. That's the name of the target. And you're going to find it on localhost 9999, right? So I have a Prometheus binary here. Config file. And now it's collecting, and we should be able to prove this by someplace I got over here. I'm gonna have to come out of this quick and on localhost. And you can prove that the metrics are actually hitting the scene here. Oops. So this is Prometheus. It's a little small, I think, isn't it? There you go. Now you see that it's command line completing inside this to find the metrics that are available that it's scraping. You can also go see in the status my targets. You see he's really happy that I'm collecting stuff on localhost 9090. And those are the same metrics you just saw on the Fluent bit side that are now being pulled over here and collected and stored inside of my Prometheus backend. And if you want to see the extra labels we added, I think it's uptime. Oops. It's really hard to type. I'm tall and this is very low If you see there, you're basically seeing the metric being collected with the labels that have been added. So the rejects in London, and what's the other one that we added in there? Fluent bit there, I guess. The app name is on the front end. So now you're seeing the ability to collect your data, your telemetry data on the front end, turn it into metrics and show this stuff, right? That takes us back to, let me turn this all off. See. Turn that off. And I'm told I have 5 minutes. So here we go. So now we're going to have one where we're going to do, where did my Google go? There we go. Here, slideshow. All right. Now we're going to do one where we do the same thing kind of collecting. You saw the console output. I'm not going to run that because we're running out of time, so I'll just skip it, and you can assume that I'll show you that it's running, and then we'll start modifying stuff in it. And then we're going to put it into an OTel envelope, and I'm going to show you at the front end. So you have Fluent bit collecting it, you have Fluent bit output, you're going to see that it's in an OTel envelope. It's going to go from JSON to an OTel envelope format. And then we're going to turn on an OTel collector. And we're going to have that collect that. We're going to turn on pushing it to it. It's not pulling, you have to push to an OTel collector. So I have to tell Fluent bit where to send this stuff. It uses an OTel output plugin to push it to OTel collector. On the backside of OTel, you're going to see it come out of the console, because we're just going to use debugging on the console side of OTel collector. Normally you want to go to some kind of backend, right, with that kind of data. So to do that, we're going to simulate going to a file system. So there'll be an actual file in the temp directory where you're going to see this stored, just like you would in the cloud, right? Cloud storage, cloud backend, whatever you're doing. Okay? So what's that look like? What you see here is we have the hot reload on, we have a certain kind of backend and all that kind of stuff going on, and you see this going to standard output. So we'll turn that on. So here's the front end running. It's got it coming out of the console. And we're going to go over here and we're going to turn on the OTel envelope. That happens in the processor section. And, oops. There. And we'll do this 24912. You see now what's been added is a resource and a scope. This is part of the OTLP protocol. So not only do you have the workload and the description of what you're doing, you have a resource and a scope with a bunch of information you can add into there. And you see that nothing's really happening with that, right? It's just empty. So let's go in here and let's show that we can modify by adding a few things to that scope, or to the resource, I guess you would call it. And now you see inside the resource, you see a service name and you see a host name being added. You can also go down here and you can add in the scope. Now we see stuff inside the resource and inside the scope, right? Not very pretty yet. Let's go turn on the OTel with just collecting and sending it to the back. And so now it's ready to go, but right now we haven't sent it anywhere yet. So let's go down here and send it somewhere to the actual collector. And the funny part is if you kill the collector, instead of seeing that nice status 200 there for the HTTP, it'll start saying, I can't send it there, I can't send it there, I can't send it there. So he just stops, he doesn't get to hit that back end. If you watch over here on the OTel collector, oops. Yeah, there it goes. So it's basically feeding and coming out this back end. It's not very pretty though, is it? So let's go over here and make it a little bit more prettier. We will send it to the file system now. And the only thing that requires is that we change this to 2, which has a different. So the original OTel configuration was just sending it to the debug output, so basically to the log, and now we've added a file output, right? And he's listening on the 4317 port. So before I do that, I'll show you that. See over here, it's puking now. It's saying I can't send it to the OTel. It's not on. We can turn it on. It says, oh, I'm happy again now, right? Now I can send it to it. Now what's interesting here is it should be sending it to the logs and to but that looks like crap, doesn't it? It's not really easy to see what's going on in these things, but you see it's streaming, so it's sending it to the file system. So let's make it a little bit prettier. And if we look here, we can make it smaller, and you can actually feed the scope. You can see the resource section, and you can see we've added some stuff to the actual body, all right? So we've done it all, basically, that I promised. That being said, back to this, see if they're awake. Yep, good. Okay, so everything I promised we did, I believe. You can do the QR code to go to this. You can also go to the short URL. This is a 7-lab workshop right now. After they release 4.0, I'll start adding some new stuff in there because guess what? Head and tail sampling is coming. There's nothing cooler, I think, than head and tail sampling in a console. So you get traces in the Fluent bit log output. It's pretty kind of neat. So there'll be some new stuff coming. It will be based on 4.0, not 3.2. You can do all this fun stuff in there. You can also go to this one and find a bunch of other stuff that we host. So you can do Prometheus workshops, you can do OTel workshops, and Percy's. Anybody heard of Percy's? Nobody's heard of Percy's? It's a sandbox project inside the CNCF. It's the first visualization and dashboard project in the whole CNCF landscape. It's initially targeting metrics in Prometheus and PromQL. It's well worth taking a look at. You can build a really cool dashboard in there. And if you're interested in looking at some of the telemetry pipeline stuff at scale and what that looks like inside of an enterprise, feel free to go take a look at this one. This is also a lot of fun. And with that, are there any questions? I think I'm within a minute, right? Yeah. How about that? Pretty close. Spent more than half the time on the demo, so there you go. Tried to sneak it by you guys, but you were too sharp in the beginning. Any questions? Was it that self-explanatory? Cool beans.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.